Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dom, I've been thinking about this. I want to call this the Release the Kraken Tapes Wednesday edition.
Happy Hump Day, Crute. Release the Kraken. Nate, working the board. Thank you for your hard work. Our fair audience. Happy Hump Day.
You're going to have to wait till the happy hour to hear the Kraken Tapes. We have the Kraken Tapes. We have the testimony given by Sidney Powell and a little bit of the Jenna Ellis as well. We're going to release that in the 5 o'clock hour for you, our audience. And we're going to have some fun with that.
Oh, yeah.
Also, that two first name guy, that Senator Mark Wayne Mullen from Oklahoma, well, he keeps talking about Fight Club.
You're not supposed to talk about Fight Club, Crute.
I didn't think as a U.S. Senator you were supposed to talk about Fight Club. I thought he was a big man, strapping lad like myself.
No, man, he's like, I looked it up. He's 5'8", man. He's like barely taller than me. He's a little dude.
Little Napoleonic complex, Dom.
Maybe a little of that going on. Come on, Mark Wayne, you're making us short guys look bad.
Do you think he wears the DeSantis sliders and the heels?
It's entirely possible. Given the over response, given the brashness of the senator who got shouted down by Bernie Sanders, I wouldn't doubt it, but who am I to judge?
No, I don't know the man, Dom, and I know he's got like 6 kids, but I see him like in a Corvette with like an AR-15 as his co-pilot, trying to cover all the inadequacies all at once.
A total bro sesh for sure. Red Corvette. Yeah. Check the boxes.
We'll get back to that, Dom. But let me ask you a question. Why do Republicans hate engineers? and apparently diversity.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of math that goes on with engineers, and I'm not sure Republicans are very good at that sometimes.
We got to find guest joining us. She's probably good at math. We're not going to do math on the radio, but maybe a little governance. We've got the minority leader, our friend Melissa Agard, state senator from Madison, coming in here in the Solidarity Realty Studios real soon, like 20 minutes from now. You'll stick around for that. But Tom, let's start today. It is a rare day when you can say the entire business community, nearly, at least all those impacted by engineering, are against the actions of these Republicans. And by these Republicans, I mean Boss Voss and your buddy, Jay Sortwell. Apparently, they're of one mind on this stuff.
Yeah, they've merged their agendas.
I referenced the reporting of Kelly Mayhofer over at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Wisconsin businesses need more engineers, but Republicans are holding up the UW-Madison project that would help address the shortage. And you say, why?
Why?
Well, we'll get to that. The Republican war on diversity, equity, and inclusion could cost Wisconsin hundreds of engineers. That's every year.
Collateral damage, no biggie.
The GOP-controlled legislature declined to fund a new engineering building for the University of Wisconsin-Madison as part of the state budget. The project would expand enrollment in the engineering college, and the decision dealt a significant blow to the state's flagship and to the business community, which is typically aligned with Republican interests but finds itself at odds on this particular project. The two have teamed up to push for the building's approval in the remaining months of the legislative session, In surveying every lawmaker about their position on the project, it is clear many support the building of a new engineering building, Dom, but Republicans are holding it hostage to extract concessions from the state university system around the DEI programming.
Sounds a little like log rolling to me, Crute.
A little bit. Assembly Speaker Robin Voss, Republican from Rochester, said once a deal with UW is negotiated around the DEI and other demands, the terrorists have their demands, Dom, the legislature would present a proposal that includes the engineering building. So we can't have raises for the staff, any of the UW staff, because Robin Voss wants to eradicate all funding for diversity.
Now, my understanding,
and also,
Governor Evers is suing on that topic, in that specific regard.
He might sue, but that's not changing Robin Voss's mind. He'll waste some more of the, when you can waste the taxpayers' money in litigation, why not?
I mean, OPM, Crute.
But to fail to fund capital investiture, and I mean, they've funded other capital investiture, talking about this very same Republican-led legislature. But the engineering building, like you're going to hold this thing hostage? This is the hill they're going to die on, Dom. We need engineers. We talk about it all the time. We need STEM. We need these very smart people, and we need them on to stay home, right? If you want to build a better future for the state of Wisconsin, you better have smart, educated, highly paid professionals living here in the state. Hell, I hear Microsoft making something of an investment right down the road. What if they need some engineers, Robin Voss? Well, as long as they don't need diversity or inclusion, right, Tom?
Right.
Now, just 4 lawmakers would go on the record opposing the new engineering building. 6 more said the project had merit, but was part of a broader negotiation with the UW. Is that what they're doing? Again, this terrorist ask is negotiation. A little bit more here. Most others refused to take a stand. Nearly 60%, 78 of 132 lawmakers either did not respond to multiple requests for comment or declined to discuss their position with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and 43 lawmakers said they supported the project, including 5 Republicans. I appreciate the arguments on DEI, but holding up this building isn't the way to do it, said Republican Senator Mary Felskowski from Tomahawk. Seems very reasonable here, Dom. We need to continue investing in the STEM degrees that provide family-supporting jobs in communities across Wisconsin. I agree, Senator. But Robin Voss does not, Dom.
A little bit of the math behind it. Again, Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. UW-Madison first asked the state to approve the project in 2021. It was estimated then to cost around $300 million. Republicans removed it during the 21-23 budget negotiations. Negotiations, Crute. Inflation has pushed the price tag to an estimated $347 million. $197 million would come from the state, either through taxpayer-supported borrowing or with cash from the state's $4 billion surplus. UW-Madison would fund the remaining $150 million of the project from donors. The university has already raised more than $100 million, but those gifts are all in jeopardy if the university doesn't receive state money this year. UW-Madison spokesperson John Lucas says. Today's the middle of November, Crute. We're kind of running out of time. The UW system ranked the project #1 capital priority this session. Republicans cited cost when removing it from their list, yet they approved some low-ranked projects for UW, including a $139 million addition and renovation to the UW Stout Academic Facility and a $231 million science building for UW Eau Claire.
Now, I'd point out the state's portion, the state's tab, is smaller on the engineering building than this building that's moving forward, the science building at UW Eau Claire.
Yeah,
I like the blue golds.
Right.
But I like engineers just as well, but please continue.
Renovating the current building would be difficult based on its configuration. It was constructed in 1938 and received an addition in 1987. The university's College of Engineering has the capacity to enroll about 6,350 students. That's 4,750 undergrads and 1,600 graduates. The new building would expand enrollment by 18% up to 7,500 students. A quote from Charles Haslett, who oversees government relations for UW-Madison. If we can enroll and graduate 1,000 more students every year, that's 1,000 more students who have high potential of staying in the state and becoming taxpayers, as opposed to going somewhere else. Filling the extra seats shouldn't be a problem. About 8,550 students applied last year for one of 1,200 spots in the freshman class.
So we got 7 applications for every slot currently available, but we got to hold it all up for DEI terrorist threats from the Speaker of the House.
A little bit here. Some rejected applicants enroll in engineering programs at other UW schools, Haslett said, but more often than not, they end up at other Big Ten schools like the University of Illinois, Purdue, or Ohio State. And Crute is not a fan of Ohio State.
Oh, I hate the Buckeyes. Not much of a fan of the Cornhuskers either. We play them this weekend. Dom, but here's the craziest part. The Republicans have put the business community in direct opposition. You know, Republicans have talked about, and again, from this reporting, the importance of keeping the best and brightest high school students in the state for college. That's why their refusal to approve the project baffles the business community.
It's baffling.
Among those calling for legislative action are some of the state's largest employers, including Johnson Control, Kohler, Epic, American Family Insurance, Rockwell Automation. Business groups supportive of the project include Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce. That's like the Republicans' right-hand lobby group. Wisconsin Technology Council and the Fox Cities Chambers of Commerce.
I mean, those don't strike me as a bunch of hippie, woke kind of organizations or companies, Crute.
Here's hippie, dippy Oshkosh Corporation. You know, they make the war machines. Their CEO, John Pfeiffer, says, it just seems like such an easy decision that you want to expand the premium engineering school in the state to help fuel the economy. It's pretty straightforward to me.
It's pretty straightforward.
Dom, the average starting base salary for a UW-Madison engineering major graduate, $75,000 a year. That's a pretty good job. It's better than radio work.
Amen,
but it takes a little more brain power, I would suspect. Come back with us. We'll try to turn the brains on. The Wednesday edition, right?
Yes.
I'm not an engineer over here, or a rocket scientist, or a brain surgeon.
Warning, listening to the Devil's Advocates may expose you to opposing views.
Welcome back from the 420 break. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. You can join us on the lines 844-967-2789. Why don't Republicans want an engineering school, man? And of course, stick around. State Senator of Wisconsin, Melissa Agard, going to join us at the bottom of the hour.
Really, it's something of a terrorist act, is it not?
Is it? But is it? You know, this reminds me of the Tommy Tuberville thing. You know, not allowing these military promotions to go through because of what? Abortion. I mean, you know, nothing to do with the topic at hand, but want to create, you know, some issue that they want to, you know, this hill they want to stand and die on.
These very same Republicans, their idea of economic development, investment in the state, Dom, was Foxconn.
Yeah.
I was in the assembly parlor. I sat, plopped my ass down in the front row when Scott Walker's bright idea, his Hail Mary, right? This was him. And hell, eventually it was Rance Priebus, and Donald Trump even glommed onto some credit, building the eighth wonder of the world. They built the eighth wonder.
Yeah, 250,000 jobs Scott Walker said he was going to create while governor.
Well, Foxconn was a big part of that, Dom. But now I understand Foxconn, or at least a big portion, large portion thereof, it's selling. Like, they did nothing there for going on a decade, Dom. In fact, you know, the entire community where Robin Voss lives and quote unquote serves has just been decimated. At least so many have been pushed out through eminent domain for a corporation that never paid off, never took
the heavy hand of the government being implemented by small government Republicans to give money to an out-of-country corporation as a campaign promise to part of his 250,000 jobs. Wow.
And when Robin Voss sat up there at that Capitol, and I was in the front row again, I plopped down, sat there, and Robin Voss was bragging about the well-paying jobs at Foxconn at $13 an hour. That'd be about approximately $27,000 a year. That's what, roughly a third of what these engineering jobs would pay? And the difference being is instead of the state of Wisconsin, investing billions in a foreign corporation, we would actually invest in infrastructure through long-term borrowing that would create human capital that would stay here, right here in the state of Wisconsin. Probably, can't keep them here.
Hopefully, right?
But a good job would keep them here.
Absolutely.
Once you get that $75,000 a year job, you don't want to, go work as a barista at a Starbucks in Denver anymore. So, Dom, now we've had some movement. The Mount Pleasant deal with Microsoft buying up a big chunk of this, Dom, with no financial subsidies.
What? No subsidies? Why would they bother doing such a thing?
Here, according to Alan Markovitz, an attorney representing Mount Pleasant, I found this at the Urban Milwaukee online daily, Urban Milwaukee, no additional borrowing will be required of either the village or the county. According to the attorney, no new infrastructure will be required of either the village or the county. And finally, no new additional financial incentives to Microsoft will be required by either the village or the county.
I sense a repeating trend here.
That's a little bit different than the deal Walker made on the back of the napkin with Mr. Foxconn. Thank you, Mr. Foxconn.
Thank you, Mr. Foxconn.
Last week, Governor Tony Evers and local officials announced Microsoft was expanding its plans for Mount Pleasant, intending to develop additional data centers on the property and to invest billions of dollars in the community over the next decade. Dom, they're promising, my understanding, to achieve a property assessment of $1.4 billion or more. Microsoft, well, that's the deal they made with the community, which helps offset some of the loss on the Foxconn, Dom? Because Foxconn never turned into much, did it?
They say here, according to the reporting at Urban Milwaukee, under the new agreement, Microsoft is expected to build at least four buildings at the site and is guaranteeing a minimum assessment of $1.4 billion by January 1st of 2028. And we're going to roll into 2024 here real soon. So this is looking like a 3-year 2024. So 3 full years.
Do you remember when Scott Walker proposed this? Oh, what a marvelous thing. He thought this would be the victory that would keep him in office and hold back, that super dynamic guy, Tony Evers, right? this deal proceeded, or did it not? Do I get my math wrong? No, it was Scott Walker's Hail Mary re-election plan.
Yes.
And I think about Scott Walker occasionally because, I always wondered what he would do after he failed to be the president. It sounded something like this.
You wouldn't hire me to be a neurosurgeon. You wouldn't hire me to run condos. You wouldn't hire me to run HP. You probably wouldn't hire me to run the United States Senate.
The list of jobs I would not hire him to do, Dom, is
they're infinite.
He could fill a book.
I mean, but he does, work for the YAF now.
But his idea of economic development was to give a foreign corporation something approaching $4.5 billion in investment with nothing other than a little political capital in return, right?
Create 250,000 jobs. My math was wrong. 4 years to get this assessed value up to $1.4 billion. And as mentioned, that's in addition to the $1.4 billion minimum valuation guarantee obligation from Foxconn. 844-967-2789. Wisco Paul. Happy hump day, Paul. What do you got for us today?
Hey, Devils, thanks for taking my call. I got just something to say on the engineering building. The Republicans hate, for whatever reason, they just hate the Madison area, the place I spent most of my life living in or around. They also hate Middleton because it's close to Madison. So
that's where I live, Paul. That's why they hate Middleton.
Yeah, right. That's it. But they're never going to, well, I shouldn't say never, but their hate is so intense for Madison and the university that they will not spend money to actually help the state, help businesses. For goodness sakes, and what's going on down there in with Microsoft, that's big time engineering. So it's just sick. These guys, they're just sick people. I don't know.
I don't think it's hate for Madison, Wisco. I don't think it is. I think it's hate of diversity and hate that we would acknowledge that perhaps there's some structural inequities, and hate that they might try to make some college kids feel comfortable on campus because, Robin Voss liked it when it was all white kids down at Whitewater. It was right in the name, Paul, if you know what I'm saying.
It's an opportunity, Wisco, for the Republicans to try to jam something up to get something pushed through that they want. I mean, that seems to be kind of par for the course for the Republicans. Again, the Tommy Tuberville.
But what they want is sort of a racist agenda, is it not? Shouldn't they be called out for that each and every day, Don?
Yes. According to Robin Voss, it is exclusion to want inclusion. That's the logic. But at the other side of this too, also, those giving all the money to the university and those folks making $75,000. I'm not clear how that translates to donations. Got to help me out on that one.
If I could only get one of those promised $13 an hour Foxconn jobs. Can you get me one of those, Robin? Robin Voss, Speaker Voss. Got a fine guest coming in the Solidarity Realty Studio. She is Minority Leader, fine Democratic State Senator, friend of ours, Melissa Agard. for the senator. And Melissa, you really can't get too close to that thing.
Hello, check 1 2, check 1 2. Am I too loud in your ears there? Check 1 2.
You're pretty loud.
All right, let's get that.
Whoever was here before had some.
Oh, the show and the before us.
Check. How about now?
We're okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
And the only thing I may do.
Oh, it's all about the marketing optics here. Am I hiding behind the?
I think I see it better now. But yeah, it's weird because when Dom and I look, if this thing, then he can't see if I'm speaking or. I have such a pretty face. I can't.
You
hide from him.
gotta
You know how it
advertise
goes.
it. That's right. It's so funny that I grew up listening to the radio on the radio,
Yeah.
and now people listen to the radio with the picture.
Well,
I guess that means I'm
not
old.
not really. It was funny because years ago, like in 2016, we would get 250,000 engagements on our Facebook page a month, and now we get like 10,000. But a lot of that was people watching and sharing Facebook, and Facebook
Lights went out.
light just went out.
Oh, I turn mics off for a sec.
Think you know politics? Think again. Welcome to the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Wednesday edition. I've got a fine guest here with me in the Solidarity Realty Studios. She is the minority leader of the state senate, a fine Dem, right here from Madison, Wisconsin. She's our friend Melissa Agard. Welcome back, Melissa.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Thank
It's
you,
a lovely spring day, I think, or is
And
it fall?
Isn't it?
I know I messed with that microphone, but make sure you tuck right in there. People want to hear Melissa Agard. Melissa, Brewers. I'm very excited. I'm a Brewers fan, and I love the Brewers, and I want to keep them here forever because they're my team. But you weren't always a yes vote on this funding bill. You've evolved to a yes vote. And I've looked to your vote and Diane Hesselbein's vote, and I'm happy you voted the way you did. But how'd you evolve? Why the change on the Brewers funding mechanism?
Well, from the moment that the governor announced that he had a proposal to keep the Brewers here in Wisconsin, I was out on the front line saying, let's figure out a way to make this happen. And my Republican colleagues didn't like the governor's plan, surprise, surprise, ripped it up, put it in the paper shredder, and into the garbage it went. And the Republicans put out their plan. And I always felt that we could get a better deal than what it is that they came to the table with. And certainly through hard work with the Brewers, with the governor, with bipartisan groups of legislators, the Assembly got the bill to a better place than what the original plan that was proposed by the Republicans was. And in fact, over 20 Democrats voted with many of the Republicans to keep the Brewers here in Wisconsin. But I still believed after that we could do better for the state of Wisconsin. So as the leader of my caucus, I talked to all of my colleagues. I figured out where their lines in the sand were and what some of our dreams were. And I worked really hard with Senator Lemieux, the Republican majority leader, the governor, and the Brewers over many, many months to get to a point where yesterday on the floor at 8 o'clock in the morning, I think was when our final amendment was finally being entered into the system. We were able to decrease the state funding We were able to increase the amount that the Brewers were bringing to the table. We were able to ensure that the city of Milwaukee and the county of Milwaukee were good with the deal and make sure that they had a voice at the table. So at the end of the day, there was bipartisan support with 8 Democrats from my caucus of 11 voting with 11 of the Republican members of the state Senate to make sure that the Brewers do get to continue to call Wisconsin home, because much like you, they are part of our state's culture, and we need to make sure that we're preserving and protecting our state's culture.
Melissa, what do you think the special stadium sauce was that brought this deal together?
Well, at the end of the day, here in Wisconsin, we love our sports teams. We love the Bucks, we love the Brewers, we love the Badgers, we love the Packers, even when they don't win. And, you know, I think that it is vitally important that we keep our state's culture at the table, and we were able to do that here.
Melissa, prior funding, if you recall, Miller Park, some people, some of the constituents around the state really took issue with the prior mechanism of funding. And I know a few of your Democratic colleagues did sit this vote out and did choose to vote against this proposal, and I chastised a few of them because I thought sometimes we as Democrats let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I was very encouraged in this time and this day and age when there's very little bipartisan legislation that passes. I was encouraged to see a deal come together on both sides, and with the involvement of private industry and you know, the owner's contribution. Even if we would have liked to have seen the billionaire pay more, he paid some. And Melissa, do you feel like everyone should have jumped on board? Is there anything to be said for, you know, just getting on the right side of history on this? Or are there political concerns? Did some of your colleagues express concerns that if I vote for this, there's going to be a price to pay in my district?
Well, you know, we know that the deal that was cut a couple decades ago when it came to the Brewers made it be that the stadium is 2/3 asset of the state of Wisconsin. And we need to be good stewards of things that we own as the state. And that's my job as a state senator, is not only to make sure that we are being responsible with our state tax dollars, but protecting our assets and making sure that our communities are as safe as possible. And by not saying yes right away, by working hard, and by really sticking to the lines that we drew on the sand, I think we got a better deal, and we get to keep the Brewers. Do I think that we should be funding billionaires and their sports teams? No, but that's a national conversation. I mean, that's what is happening across our country. And if we really want to keep the Brewers here, this is what we needed to do. And, you know, I respect the differences of opinions, but I am really glad that the Brewers are going to continue to call Wisconsin home.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. That's Wisconsin Senate Minority Leader Melissa Agard. Melissa, I've seen some of the reporting and some of the other folks commenting on this. Crute and I talked about it a bit yesterday. Was or should there have been a basis for negotiation by looking at the most recent Bucks deal? You know, 50-50 kind of split. Was that ever part of it? Was there ever any appetite to get to that point or start beyond that and then end up there? How did it play into the Bucks deal, play into any of the conversations that you had?
This is a different deal than the Bucks deal. At the end of the day, we already own the state 2/3 of the stadium. And it was an existing asset for the state of Wisconsin. The NBA is different than the baseball leagues in our nation as well. And you can't compare apples to oranges in this case. And, you know, I very much believe that from where it is that we started with the Republicans' proposal, we were able to do much better for the state of Wisconsin. Now, do I wish we had moved forward with the governor's proposal? Absolutely. We have $7 billion of surplus sitting in the coffers here in the state of Wisconsin. And if there was a way to get it done where it wasn't costing anyone money over the next decades, that would have been wonderful. But unfortunately, the Republicans didn't like that deal. There were all sorts of proposals on the line, whether it was a ticket tax for baseball games, whether it was creating infrastructure around the Brewers Stadium, whether it was tacking on the engineering building or trying to expand Badger Care in the state of Wisconsin, or even at one point I suggested we could legalize cannabis to pay for the Brewers Stadium here in the
God
state
bless
of
you,
Wisconsin.
Melissa Agard. They didn't take the $250,000 from the Hard Rock Cafe to build the Fiserv Forum either under the prior administration of Scott Walker. Let's not pretend like they've been prudent stewards through prior stadium deals. That was a bad deal from the start after Scott Walker turned down the money. I mean, he put the state on the hook. That's a bad deal. This, a differing deal. I won't characterize it.
Well, and at the end of the day here in Wisconsin, we're going to net millions of dollars through this deal from the taxes that are collected from the players, from additional revenue that's going to come in from non-Brewers events and the ticket fee that's associated with them, through the fact that we were able to negotiate a lower percentage that our counties are going to be paying to the Department of Revenue for sales tax collections. We, as a state, and our local governments are going to benefit from all of those. And actually, despite the fact that I firmly support not giving more away to the wealthy and billionaires and well-connected folks, I believe that the state is going to end up making money on this deal, and we're going to continue to call the Brewers our home team.
And I was encouraged also, Melissa, Mayor Cavalier Johnson from Milwaukee and County Executive David Crowley, they both were supportive of this and loved the way that all went down for my local folks here. Melissa Agard, Senate Minority Leader here in Wisconsin. Another Republican deal seemingly is now getting some more action. The Foxconn site, Microsoft coming in to purchase some land, commit to $1.4 billion assessment in the next 4 years. Melissa, what's your thought on the current deal of the Foxconn area?
Well, from the beginning, the Foxconn situation was a sham. Didn't Governor Walker actually write the deal on the back of a napkin at a restaurant or a placemat that had spaghetti sauce on it or something like that? I can't remember all of those details. But, people lost their homes and local governments lost real revenue. And we are continuing to wait to see this come out in the benefit of the people of the state of Wisconsin. And, we need to hold folks accountable and do better for our local governments and for the state.
Melissa Agard, the very same party of Foxconn, be it Scott Walker, who's now in my rearview mirror mostly, but Speaker Robin Vos is still here, and he was the guy bragging about the $13 an hour well-paying jobs, the promise thereof at Foxconn. But this very same Republican contingent won't fund the expansion and the remodeling of the engineering college or the building of a new building. And they could turn out another 1,000 engineers a year in this state, a job that would pay approximately $75,000 a year, which is a lot more than $13 an hour. But they're going to hold it hostage, that and the wages of all UW employees, because Robin Vos wants racist policy or non-diverse inclusionary policy.
Yeah, I'm not caught speechless often, but I cannot justify what it is that Robin Vos is doing to the state of Wisconsin and our universities of Wisconsin systems and the people that go to work every single day. They're literally going to work every day to do good for the state as state employees and for the university as university employees. And they aren't getting a wage increase that was promised to them through the state budget process that the Republicans crafted and they overwhelmingly voted for, because one man in the Capitol building doesn't like the idea of diversity and inclusion policies. And we know at the same time that the most successful private businesses are wrapping themselves around DEI because they know that it makes their workplaces to be safer and more, their employees stay there longer and they have higher job satisfaction. So Robin is really wrong on this one. He's been wrong on a lot of things. And frankly, the fact that he's planting his flag in killing our university systems, not paying the workers what they should be paid and not providing the opportunity to have a new engineering building here in the state of Wisconsin, in the city of Madison, is so short-sighted. And I guess it is how we explain the fact that we're out migrating from Wisconsin to other states, right? Like, who wants to get a job at the university if this is the way you're going to be treated? Who wants to send their kid to school there if this is the type of culture that is on our campuses? It's absolutely a shame. I know that there are an awful lot of people in Wisconsin, Republicans and Democrats alike, that are embarrassed by these actions of Speaker Voss.
You know, my son got his admissions package from UW Whitewater, one of the schools he's considering, wants to be a business major. And I'm like, don't go there. Don't go there. and I hate to say that, but it's the besmirching of the Speaker of the House. But the UW system is really under attack. And I don't know why, with the surpluses, as you mentioned, Senator, why they're defunding in a big way the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh, why they're getting rid of 3 two-year campuses. I mean, this is where people that maybe don't want to go become a doctor, but want a secondary degree, an associate's degree, close to home, live at home with mom and dad. Got rid of Richland County, getting rid of Washington County. There's at least a third one that's scheduled for closure. Melissa, is it truly enrollment problems? The dollars are there to keep these institutions open.
Well, in the state coffers, the dollars are there to keep the institutions open, and we know that enrollment is up at many of our campuses. However, we're not going to continue watching that trend if we continue to attack it. It's like they have created a prophecy that these campuses are not going to be successful, so who's going to want to dip their toe in the water to be at those campuses? It's almost like you're taking the arsonist and turning him into the fire chief in this situation. It's not good for Wisconsin.
Melissa, I wish there was more time. I understand you're short on time. Thank you for making the trip down. I look forward to seeing perhaps a different take on the maps. The Wisconsin Supreme Court gives me lots of optimism for next year. Melissa Agard, great seeing you out in Delavan that night recently. The Walworth County Dems threw a great party. Great to see you there, Senator. Thanks for making the trip down here. More Devil's Advocates on the other side.
Thanks, Melissa.
The Devil's Advocates may not agree on much, but funny is funny.
And welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Join us on the lines 844-967-2789.
Dominic, want to thank our most recent guest, to find one. Always great to host. State Senator Melissa Agard. She is the minority leader. And I'd like to look forward to a time, Dom, when we get new maps here in the state of Wisconsin. Because I got to tell you, troubling to me, the sentiment polled by Marquette University Law School, many of the people in the state, and a preponderance of Republicans, they're okay with the current maps. You know, it's like they're on the team with the bully. So, you know, as long as they get to be the bully, you know, what W say once upon a time, you know, dictators are fine as long as I get to be the dictator, right? But I would say that should not reflect the sentiment of the people of the state of Wisconsin. And why do I say that? The engineering school. I mean, when Kurt Bauer When the guy from Wisconsin Manufacturing and Commerce is saying, I implore you, Republicans, let them build the engineering school. We need these students. We need these graduates. We need these workers. In the state of Wisconsin, we always talk about investing in our state, right?
Well, I mean,
what's the last
generally.
investment a Republican made? Investment. An actual, literally, that was it. Foxconn. That's what they have to hang their hats on. And they want us to trust them on economic development. I pointed out many times, I think Tony did a lot better, and it was pass-through money, so it didn't have to have the legislative sign-off. But those bounce-back grants, those small grants extended to small businesses, lots of them. Some approaching like 10,000 businesses in the state got those grants. No thanks to Republicans and Robin Voss. You know what they do? The last tax incentive. We're still blowing the budget each and every year to give an incentive to manufacturers and agricultural CAFOs. They don't pay taxation, not in the same way that you and I and the working stiffs do. They pay a 0.4% state tax rate.
0.4.
0.4, not 4%, 0.4%.
Less than 1%.
6-7%. Your workers are paying more than that. Hell, everybody's paying more than that, except for manufacturing, air quotes, and agricultural interest, air quotes, because not everyone qualifies, but, what do you know? The good folks down at WMC always seem to. But when they start turning against you, they got the greatest sweetheart deal in the state of Wisconsin. But you know what tax cuts don't give you? Qualified employees. You can't throw a tax cut at a qualified employee. That takes investment of resources. That takes human capital. That takes engineering schools.
Again, how does that translate to campaign donations? See, if you
it
can't
could literally translate
A, will give tax cuts or give money away to Foxconn. B, we don't know B yet, but C will be campaign donations. How does any of that activity help any of the politicians out with their campaign donations?
Well, Dom, I can tell you, if I recall, when our former buddy, Ron Johnson came down to the studios on Brady Street bragging about the Trump tax cuts in 2017. He said, Crute, I did it for guys like us because I was a small LLC called a designated S tax corp, just a tax filing allocation, meaning any profit from my little radio endeavor, and I don't think I paid a lot of dividend profit taxation, but any pass-through profit, I, as a personal individual at that time, would have had a claim on my personal taxes. And I was getting taxed at a higher rate than, let's say, corporate C Corps. But I also got to claim my taxes. The government doesn't take the self-employed guy's taxation. He gets to go spend it down on any business expense he can justify that the government doesn't, audit him over, see what a nightmare it's been for Donald Trump up till now, Dom. But at the end of the day, he also gave himself a modest tax cut. But we find out there were a couple of families in the state of Wisconsin that got a massive tax cut. Like the Uline family. And, the widow Hendricks, Dom. Those billionaires. Lo and behold, they're also designated S Corps. And this modest change relative to a little guy like me, I might have gotten a couple $100 back on my taxes. They got $200 million plus between those two families in the 2018 tax year alone. One tax cut, two families, $218 million. 1 year. That's an ongoing tax cut.
And aren't some of those folks contributors to Ron Johnson's campaign?
As fate would have it, like 10 cents on the dollar, over $20 million
like
combined donations.
It's a good formula. See how it works? I think we just kind of laid it out. I mean that's the point.
Well, we can't prove causation, but I would suggest there's a strong correlation. What do you think?
I think so. Just a little bit here to put a bow on it. Again, Kelly Meyerhofer from Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Among those businesses calling for legislative action are some of the state's largest employers: Johnson Controls, Kohler, Epic, American Family Insurance, Rockwell Automation, business groups, as Crute mentioned, Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, Wisconsin Technology Council, and the Fox Cities Chamber of Commerce. Meyer Harfel also writes, the State Department of Workforce Development projects 11.5% growth between 2020 and 2030 for architecture and engineering jobs. The average starting base, as mentioned, for UW-Madison engineering majors is $75,000. Oshkosh Corp is always hiring engineers, and Pfeiffer would prefer that they work in Wisconsin, but the industrial technology company can't find them here. It will look elsewhere. Mead and Hunt has a similar story. At career fairs, the Madison-based architectural engineering firm sees one graduating engineer for every 2 positions employers are seeking to fill. The demand for infrastructure improvement projects Mead and Hunt specializes in is at an all-time peak, CEO Andy Platt said. The company hired 300 employees last year and had the resources and interest to hire 100 more. There just weren't enough engineers to hire. And oh yeah, the infrastructure, that's coming down. We're going to need engineers for the infrastructure bill that, a lot of Republicans didn't vote for.
If only they were pipeline engineers exclusively, for God's petroleum, Dom. Republicans still love that.
I would love to hire more kids from Wisconsin, but what ends up happening is we export work out of state because we just can't find staffing in our Wisconsin offices, said Platts, whose 1,300-person firm includes 50 offices across the United States.
Well, what did Tim Michael say? Lazy Wisconsinites.
Lazy Wisconsinites.
More Devil's Advocates, never lazy. A happier happy hour for your listening pleasure.
The Kraken!
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dom, I've been eagerly anticipating the build-up to the release of the Kraken Tapes. Wednesday, happy hour. It's time.
It's time, baby.
It is time to release the Kraken.
Release the Kraken.
We have the Kraken Tapes for you, for your listing. And what are the Kraken Tapes, Dom? These are the videotaped evidence given to Fonnie Willis in the Fulton County, Georgia, right? The direct testimony. Before she made a deal, she made him make the videotape. And we also, Dom, found out who the leaker is. And you brought that to my attention. Do you have that information readily available?
Jonathan Miller, according to NBCnews.com, Jonathan Miller, an attorney for Misty Hampton, made a confession today in court during an emergency hearing for a protective order that was prompted by the publication of parts of the video statements from Powell Ellis and Kenneth Cheesebro, Scott Hall by ABC News and the Washington Post. The judge said he would issue a protective order barring the disclosure of certain discovery information by Thursday morning. Update on that. Apparently it has been issued. Powell, Ellis, Cheesebro, and Hall were among the original 18 defendants charged alongside Trump. All four pleaded guilty to related charges. The proffered videos made pursuant to their plea agreements, which required they provide true and accurate information to prosecutors. Now, the attorney who released these, Jonathan Miller, for Misty Hampton, I believe she's a Coffee County elections official. Here's what the attorneys told Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee today during the hearing. Quote, in being transparent with the court and to make sure that nobody else gets blamed for what happened, and so I can go to sleep well tonight, Judge, I did release those videos to one outlet. In all candor to the court, I need the court to know that. Asking why he'd done so, he noted that while the four's guilty pleas were public, to hide those proffers that show all the underlying things that went into those pleas, it misleads the public about what's going on. He said two of the defendants were directly related to my client, and I don't believe that either one of those hurt my client. If anything, I believe they helped my client, and the public needs to know that. The public has a right to know, Crute.
Dominic, I hear a clear conscience makes a soft my pillow.
Is there such a thing?
A soft my pillow? I'm not clear that there are. So we know who released it.
We know who.
But we've got the what? We've got the Kraken Tapes. We've got them for you. We've been building them up for a bit. Should we start with the Sidney Powell? This was the Kraken lady. She was the conspirator in chief, or at least that's publicly what I thought she was. But to hear her tell it, Dom, there were some rabbit holes even the Kraken lady didn't want to go down. not with Rudy Giuliani. Let's play it for the people. Sidney Powell, release the Kraken tapes. Cut 1.
I think a month before he had muted and said, this is crazy. Like, he never told you, like, this is crazy. Stop giving me this information.
No. What sort of things was he saying on December 18th specifically?
Well, he knew all his instincts told him he had been defrauded, that the election was a big fraud.
Okay, more of the Kraken tapes. What about his evidence? Cut 2.
When you say his instincts, did he ever describe that in any way? Did he ever point to any kind of proof or evidence or anything he was getting from his other attorneys or experts?
Well, he talked about, seeing the vote totals roll backwards on the TV.
Meaning on election night.
Yeah. And the unbelievable spikes, how far ahead he was in different states at the time all the machines stopped counting, and how it should have been impossible to make up that sort of vote difference without some kind of shenanigans. Just general instincts that something wasn't right here.
Like in Wisconsin, for say, maybe the absentee Milwaukee County ballots were counted and were reported in mass, as everyone had anticipated.
As is customary here.
But he didn't like the outcome because that put him behind in the polls, and he lost this state and so many other states.
I can't believe I lost. It must be fraud.
More on Trump's instinct, right? Cut 3.
But then on the 18th, the only real justification that he's giving you to why he's not bowing out is that his instincts tell him that he won.
That and the evidence that I'd showed him.
What evidence would that be? So
it's coming out in 2 weeks.
The president's spidey senses tingling, Dom. The former president, that's Trump. I tease a little. I don't think he's part of the Marvel Comics multiverse. More from the Kraken. Here's the part I find interesting. Sidney Powell describing her meeting with Rudy Giuliani. Cut 4.
You remember the December 21st meeting with Phil Waldron and Mark Meadows and Rudy Giuliani that you went to?
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's the one where Rudy got really ugly.
Okay.
Yep. And that went to foreign interference.
And a little bit more on the meeting with Rudy. I wonder, I don't speculate, but I wonder, was Rudy drinking heavily that day? Let's hear it from Powell. She doesn't really address that aspect. Cut number 5 of the Kraken tapes.
There was a big shouting match in which Rudy called me every name in the book, and I was the worst lawyer he'd ever seen in his life. There were no circumstances under which he'd work with me on anything. He called me a bitch and I don't know what all. And that's pretty much all I remember about that one.
That's all I got to say about that.
A very Forrest Gump-like answer.
Oh, wow.
Life is like a box of chocolates, Kraken lady.
All the things Scott Walker said during the presidential campaign that he was not qualified to do. Woo.
Now, it's not a Kraken tape per se, but it is a confessed, convicted defendant tape, the pre-pleading tape of Jenna Ellis. Now, she's the one that sat in the Michigan, was it a legislature or a courtroom hearing next to the flatulent Rudy Giuliani, if I recall.
I believe that's correct. I mean,
was she there with him at the Four Seasons landscaping business next to the dildo parlor? Was she there as well?
I don't recall. That was when the dye was running down the side of his face. Yeah,
well, that was the day after the election when, of course, he made the claim it was stolen, it was rigged.
So many interesting times. But Jenna Ellis now cooperating, pleading guilty, and on tape. And here's what she said about the boss. Nate, cut 7, please.
He had come up to me and introduced me to his family and had said, thank you for the work that you're doing for the president. And I said something to him like, I'm sorry that we haven't been able to do more. And I emphasized to him, I thought that the claims and the ability to challenge the election results was essentially over because of the dismissal of the Texas versus Pennsylvania case from the United States Supreme Court. And he said to me in a kind of excited tone, well, we don't care and we're not going to leave. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, the boss, meaning President Trump, and everyone understood the boss, that's what we all called him. He said the boss is not going to leave under any circumstances. We are just going to stay in power. And I said to him, well, it doesn't quite work that way, you realize. And he said, we don't care.
Now, that was a conversation that Ellis reportedly had with Dan Scavino, and he was a Trump White House official, I believe came over from the Trump organization. The boss would refuse to leave. We're just not going to leave.
This seems a little damning.
Wow. I mean, it does. And so to the point. Now, Fani Willis, she today, they had this hearing, this emergency hearing. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee on Wednesday said he would enter a protective order after evidence was leaked in the President Trump's election interference case. The release of these confidential video recordings is clearly intended to intimidate witnesses in this case, subjecting them to harassment and threats prior to trial, Fulton County DA's office said in a motion on Tuesday. Judge McAfee again has granted that. And also another headline here from the Raw story: Trump co-defendant in Georgia faces possible bail revocation after attacking witnesses. Who is this one? According to a motion filed by Fani Willis today, Harrison Floyd should have his bail revoked because he gave interviews to conservative outlets discussing the specifics of the case. And apparently, according to Roster, it goes on to attack Ellis and Dan Scavino and so on and so forth. But so now they're also trying to revoke his bail. We'll see what happens. No ending conclusion on that yet.
Dominic, former President Donald Trump's one-time attorney, Jenna Ellis, sealed her former boss's fate in her pro-offer video with the prosecutors in the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, made public in a leak this week. Right here on the Devil's Advocates radio show, we just made it public, Dom. That's the view of a former federal prosecutor, Glenn Kirshner, who sat for legal analysis with Brian Taylor Cohen. Here's what he said. This is a knockout blow on the criminal intent front. I mean, there's no way for Donald Trump to maintain even a little glimmer of hope of convincing people that he lacked criminal intent. Why? Kirshner continued. Because once you have more witnesses, your own lawyers, for goodness sake, saying, you informed everybody that it didn't matter if you lost, you're not leaving. You're not relinquishing power. So this evidence is really something of a knockout blow that can be used to prove Donald Trump's criminal intent once and for all, conclusively, beyond a reasonable doubt. That'd be the standard in the court of law, wouldn't it, Dom?
I believe so, Michael.
Feeling better today? I like this leak.
Yeah.
Go give the leaker a hug. He did it for the people, for the audience of the Devil's Advocates radio show. 844-96-PARTY. Come on back.
The Kraken!
The Devil's Advocates, tackling the issues you're not allowed to talk about at the dinner table.
We are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Happy hump day to us all. You can join us on the lines 844-967-2789.
What would you call that? Trash texting during the commercial break? You know, I should stand up right now.
Get off your butt. Get off
Couple
your
of consenting adults.
What? You want a kiss? I'm not sure what's happening here.
You know, it's funny. The sound of the two named senator, the Mark Wayne Mullen guy. When you play back that tape and you don't have the full context that he's calling a man out for a fight, but if you play it a little out of context, it does sound like one man is sexually propositioning another man. Two consenting adults.
We can do it right here, right now.
Right here, right now.
I'm in. Get off your butt. You get off your butt.
I don't want to read too much, Dom.
Oh, no, of course.
A few of the later night hosts did find some humor there last night.
Oh, it's just embarrassing, man. I mean, for real.
Well, he did. The Mark Wayne guy, Mark Wayne Mullen, Senator Mark
Mullen
Wayne to you. Well, he's got a new take on this, Dom, and I think we should play it for you, the audience. I don't think you, Dom, have heard it either, so let's play it. You know, just between us friends. Probably no one heard it on the Hannity show, and I got to say something. Our fine producer Nate, and he's newer to the product, but not a young kid, but he played this for me during the pregame prep. And he said, "Oh, the other voice is Sean Hannity."
Sorry, I don't listen to Hannity every night, Crute.
No one could, but I am well aware of what Ed Schultz used to call him slanthead like a decade ago. I know what Hannity slanthead sounds like.
Hey, now, Hannity, he trains in MMA as well. You might want to be careful there. You call him slanthead, he might come after you. Get off your butt.
Well, I didn't know this Mark Wayne was a former professional MMA fighter, Dom. So
yeah,
he's
and
talking smack. He can back it up, unlike you.
Oh, come on, man. Bring it on. We'll start right now. You want to go? I mean, it's just
get off your ass.
I know. It's just amazing
right
how
now.
terrible it sounds. I mean, when you see it like that, and I know he's supposed to be a senator and, you should be more deliberative about it. But it's really bad when you see it. So when you see people acting all douchey like that, all bro-sesh, just don't do that because it's a bad look. It's like chewing gum on camera. Don't do that.
But I got to say, the Teamster guy, I need to know what his
so Mark
weight is.
He's 5'8", 170. So
that's not a big man. That's
he's and he's taller than me, but he's probably pushing that. So he's probably more like 5'7". I mean, you know how it is, Crute. What's your license say on your weight?
215? I don't know. It's been a while. No, I'm
215. You pulling the trump. You know what I'm saying? So the card, I don't know.
I'm 240. I'm a man size.
He's a short guy, man. He's like my height.
I got to tell you, if I don't care, and I'm not saying that I'm capable of matching up with an MMA fighter in a fair fight, not a guy my size, but a guy I got 60, 80 pounds on, maybe I'd take him up on that. Because I got to tell you, like Fancy Brian, our friend, Brian Kelly, enormous dude. And if you ever thought you were going to fight this dude, he's got a plan.
Move. Yeah.
He's got a plan. Just grab and fall. Yeah. He's going to grab you and fall on you. And he's going to crush you like a bug.
Uh-huh.
There's no winning that fight against a dude that is so substantially larger than you. And I'm not saying there aren't some guys that could fight out there, but I got to tell you, if Mark Wayne called me out like that in the Senate chamber, I might stand my ass up as well, Dom.
I know, but the whole thing is so ridiculous. And sure. So apparently there was some, jawboning, online, the keyboard warrior stuff between these two that precipitated this hearing. But the reality of it is, number one, of course, you're in the Senate, and we have self-governance and these deliberative bodies, so we don't have to fight in the streets. You know what I mean? It's kind of the antithesis of what we're trying to do here.
But Mark Wade would tell you there is precedent here, Dom. Senators whooping each other's asses. It's happened before, and therefore it could and should happen again.
Historically, yes, people have gotten into fights that are in government, but this is not something we should aspire to, man. You know, and what if all of a sudden you step up to that guy and you want to go down and he's a stand your ground guy. And the MMA doesn't stop the bullets. And so all this is a continued escalation, right? I mean, this is not, and I don't know what the beef was. I haven't gone into the details between these guys, but when you stand up, Mr. 5'8" guy, you know, and who apparently in Newsmax interviews that I saw said, well, hey, what would happen if Sean O'Brien would have stood up? Well, I'd have jumped over the desk and gone after him. I'd have done this. And, you should have seen the look on his face.
Bring it. It's already been broadened.
All of that. This is the point, though, man. We're trying to avoid this, right? That's why we engage in self-governance and we do these things so we don't have to beat each other in the street. And this guy seems a little too eager to, go back to the old days because, hell, Crute, there's precedent for a civil war. There's precedent for a January 6th coup. It's been done. It can be done again, right, Senator?
844-967-2789. A new name, John from Wausau. Welcome, John. What do you got for us?
Hi, John.
Hi. I was just wondering, do you guys believe in cause and effect?
Sometimes.
Something which causes something?
Sometimes. Depends.
Sure.
Sometimes. Okay.
Is there a specific example for us, John?
Yes, I do have a specific example. So I'd have to find the article, but there was an article posted, I think, by the New York Times saying that if, like, Google, Facebook, Twitter, yada, 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 ran the Hunter Biden laptop story before the election and not try to hide it, that there was anywhere of like 2 million to 5 million people would have said they would not have voted for Biden, or they would have changed their vote to somebody else. Now, if you were to take that 2 million to 5 million and sprinkle that across, states that Trump lost, we don't even have any of this. Like, none of this would have ever happened. No insurrection, no January 6th, no fighting in Georgia, nothing like that.
You're assuming that would have caused people to vote against, and Trump would have been elected president. That's what you're saying.
People have said that if they would have.
John, I believe that polling.
About the Hunter Biden.
I believe that if fully informed, and there was an effort to sort of suppress that story, especially the New York Post coverage of the Hunter Biden story. Unfortunately, what I think happened, and John, I don't doubt your assessment. I don't doubt the New York Times assessment that the polling said enough people might have voted a different way. But the source material had been so polluted by Rudy Giuliani and some of his buddies, man. They put all kinds of stuff on this laptop. Now, Hunter Biden had all sorts of incriminating stuff on this laptop as well. But John, ultimately, he was not the guy running for president.
I understand that, but I'm saying people have said that if they would have heard about this story.
John, we're short on time. Hold tight, please, because I want to talk to you on the other side, because, this could be a shoe on the other foot soon.
When they go low, we get high. The Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, a happy hour, the Wednesday edition. And John from Wausau has kindly stuck around. John, I appreciate you doing so. Welcome back. We don't normally hold the callers, but kind of ran you up against the break there. So, John,
That's okay.
I have certainly seen enough coverage sort of after the fact, bemoaning the fact that the Hunter Biden laptop story was not widely disseminated on social media, especially the New York Post coverage, which is a Rupert Murdoch thing. And I'd like to consider myself a fair umpire here. I do believe that certain people would have been influenced by this story had it been published broadly and thrown out there to the world. And it's hard to know for sure. You know, it's hard to disprove a negative, right, John? It's hard to know for sure if that would have changed the outcome of the election. But I think it's within the realm of possibility. I think it's within the realm. John, so what I would ask you to do, and I don't want to relitigate each elective cycle, but let's look back even 4 years further than that. Do you remember when Hillary Clinton's emails were widely disseminated? Do you remember when they started releasing them in tandem with the Democratic National Convention? And when I say them, they came through sort of Russian channels and Russian outlets. I forget who's the guy? The
Wikipedia,
WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks, yes.
Yes. But we actually had a reporter that we interviewed, a guy named Ken Vogel, who was a former Badger, worked for Politico at the time. And we were at the DNC. We were in Philly, and that story broke, man. And we got the guy. We got the journalist, and we talked to him, John. And I got to tell you, those were some ugly stories. They were ugly stories. And they even made a guy like me, who probably is a little more left than you are, perhaps, John. They made me second guess the nominee. They made me wonder. As a show host, I found a hard time supporting Hillary Clinton because some of the information contained in those private emails, well, they colored my opinion of her. And in fact, John, they might have colored enough people's opinion here in the state of Wisconsin that they chose to vote for Gary Johnson, or maybe they voted for Jill Stein in 2016. And maybe it even changed the outcome of the election theoretically. Can we agree that maybe it could have?
Well, and let me interject here also, fellas. It wasn't just those releases. It was also James Comey from the FBI coming out 2 weeks before the election, holding a press conference and talking about why he's not charging Hillary Clinton, but then kind of, breaking her over the coals either way. So, I mean, I think you can look at that and wonder, certainly, could that have changed the outcome? Because if that happened, then John, and maybe if Comey didn't do that, then perhaps Hillary would have been president and we wouldn't have had Trump to even worry about whether or not January 6th would have happened. So we can go back and back and back on all these things, John. But let me, if we may, and I appreciate you sticking around, man, I really want to know your opinion on this. It seems like the attitude, the brashness is getting worse and worse and worse. If you've listened, you hear what the senator from Oklahoma challenging a Teamster to a fight in a Senate committee hearing. John, when you hear those kinds of things, when you hear that the former speaker is elbowing a fellow Republican who voted to oust him, when you hear those kinds of things, what does it make you think? Do you think that's acceptable? What should we do to address those if you think they need addressing, John?
Yeah, it needs to be addressed, and I think they're just acting like children that need to be put in a timeout, essentially.
Well, John, we have that in common, don't we?
Yeah.
John, appreciate you listening. Are you listening on the Bull Falls radio there in Wausau?
Yes.
John, appreciate you doing so, man. I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving, and please consider calling us again, because I appreciate when we can have a candid conversation and we can agree that, it's hard to prove or disprove, but probably both elective cycles were influenced by very significant events. And what I worry about, John, is the next elective cycle, right? Because I don't want to fight with you, dude. I want to find some common ground. I want to find the reason to come have a a beer with you at the Dean Dome the next time we're in Wausau. Dom and I want to have a beer with you, dude. Yeah, the bowl-a-thon.
Right.
You know, we want to find a way to find some common ground again, because at the end of the day, dude, I think so many of us think alike, and when they embarrass us, you know, we all want to throw the bums out, don't we?
Yeah, for sure.
Happy Thanksgiving, John. You going hunting?
You too. No.
Oh, he's not going hunting, so I won't say good luck with the buck, but be well,
safe,
John.
everybody. Thanks, John.
844-967-2789. Against my better judgment, Tom, he's been a long ban, and the one day we gave him a shot, and then he was gone. But I invoked him, and I told this guy that I would like to get together before the holidays, just me and CJ, and have a private conversation. And CJ, I'm wondering, are you down, buddy? I mean, I think we could do it. I think we could lock ourselves in a room, and I think we could find some common ground for the holidays. What do you think, CJ?
Hey, CJ.
Hi, guys. Well, yeah, I'm down for that. The only issue is I might be traveling.
You going deer
but
hunting?
Thank you for the offer. No, actually, I'm going across country to move my daughter and her family.
Oh, that doesn't sound like much of a drag, does it, CJ? Cross country moving the fam?
Well, and it's a good thing. A great opportunity and job for them, so it's not a bad thing. No.
Well, here's the good news. We haven't had this heart-to-heart yet, CJ, so I don't feel any obligation to help you move people.
Got a pickup truck we could borrow, Crute?
Because you know what? You know, a friend in need is a friend indeed. Dom and I had to move a lady one time, and it was a couple trucks worth.
To help me move me across country. But,
I think we would have volunteers from the audience, CJ. You might be surprised.
No. Well, I'm even surprised you picked up the phone, but I did get that message, and I would be up for that very much so.
When you got to travel with the kids, before the holidays or after the holidays?
Actually, it's right after.
Well, let's do it before the holidays, CJ. I got your number. I'll call you offline. And an hour. Lock ourselves in the box for an hour. And if it's worth listening to, CJ, if we don't beat the snot out of each other and threaten to stand up and start a fight, then I would like to play it out for the audience on Thanksgiving and see if there's something there worth hearing. Two human beings trying to find some humanity in two other human beings, or I think that makes four of us, but just two of us in the room. Anyway, CJ, the offer's open, and I'll call you about it. But what did you want to talk about today?
Well, I just a few minutes that I heard you talking about admitting that the laptop was possibly to John was real. It's not the laptop that's the issue. It's the selling out of the Biden trade, his brand and of our country. That's the issue for me.
Well, former Twitter employees described it as a mistake to have quote unquote suppressed the New York Post coverage. But they said there was no, let's say, active acting in concert with the government. No one kept them from doing this. This was a corporate decision, and they admit after the fact it was a bad one, CJ.
How much money did the FBI pay Twitter and Facebook to keep that information off? The FBI paid for them.
I don't know about that.
I haven't seen that reporting, CJ.
If I may, CJ, if I may ask you a question, if you're concerned certainly about these kinds of issues and we have the current president, and presumably, obviously Donald Trump is leading in the Republican primaries, and he's been charged in court with fraud. He's been convicted civilly of causing rape, let's put it, and he's been caught with all sorts of documents in his residence at Mar-a-Lago that he lied about and is going to trial for. Are there any of those things concerning to you as you would look to, vote for a conservative in this election cycle, CJ? Are you still a Trump person, or are you going anywhere else?
Well, do they concern me? Hell yes. Because I can tell you what, he's going to be convicted. He's going to be charged because in a few of those places, Dom, he's not going to get a fair trial. The mere fact of what's going on about his property.
Do you think he would be convicted if he was given a fair trial? Let's say they moved the jurisdiction. The same evidence that we've seen in the public, the tape we played, Jenna Ellis saying effectively they knew, but they weren't ever going to leave the White House. They didn't plan on quitting here, CJ. This was known. And the boss said, we're not leaving, the boss being Trump. Well, that shows intent. I mean, you just heard it on tape. Do you believe your own ears, CJ?
Well, here's the thing. I think everything should be exhausted, okay, legally. And even the questioning of all those federal cases across the country, there is a difference between a true audit, and a recount. Okay.
We had all of the above here in Wisconsin,
some
CJ.
Of those cases, there was not a true audit done of some of those areas.
But there was in CJ, there was in Wisconsin. Do you believe what happened in Wisconsin? Donald Trump paid for recounts, right? And some conservative organization did their own. There was
Dane County, Milwaukee County, Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty, the Legislative Audit Bureau. They all did their counts.
And by
call it what you want.
When it was all said and done in Milwaukee, my understanding is Joe Biden got actually a couple of more votes. When the recounts and the audits and these things are done, CJ, here in the state of Wisconsin, do you believe the results?
Well, I do in the aspect of, here's the thing. Some of these changes that were made for these elections was due to COVID, but if they weren't run through our state legislature. And that's the thing. Who's the election woman that it slips my
Megan
mind
Wolf.
that they were trying to impeach?
Megan Wolf.
Here's the thing. The mere fact that it went through, it's kind of like our spending federally. They want to keep our spending at the COVID spending, and that creates it's way more money than what we were spending then. That's what caused this.
CJ, we're going to have to get together for some turkey and some beer or something, man, because I can't follow all of that logic. But I want to continue having open-minded conversation, CJ. So I'll reach out to you, man, and you and I will take an hour and we'll solve all the world's problems in one day. 844-967-2789. Sneak in one or two more here before a fine guest, Liza Hellenbrand with the Empowered Caregivers. Keith from Middleton. Welcome, Keith. What do you got for us?
Hi, Keith.
Hey guys. I'm sorry. I'm listening to you guys talk to the last caller there. I don't understand why you're giving him any oxygen. I really don't. I mean, he's not a conservative. There's the difference between a conservative and a Trumplican. And conservatives are not Trump fans. True conservatives are not Trump fans. So just look at.
I don't care what he calls himself. Is he your neighbor, Keith? You might be surprised to find out the guy lives in Dane County here, and he shows up at bar parties and such.
He may be my neighbor, and we may shop at the same store, and I may say, "Hey, dude, you know what? I'm sorry if I cut you off in traffic. I may be nice to him and so forth like that, but." You know what? It gets to the point where I'm sorry. There's absolutely, it's nonsensical. Circular talk. No flipping sense. I'm sorry. There's no arguing with that.
Well, I'm not defending his logic per se, Keith, but just the concept of continuing to have open dialogue when possible.
Circular dialogue, as Keith might put it. Thanks for the call, Keith. Appreciate it.
Circular firing squad?
A little bit of that.
Liza Hellenbrand, our fine guest, coming next. She is the host of the Empowered Caregiver right here on the Civic Media Network. Her show kicking off at 7 o'clock tonight after the Maggie Dawn show. I think Anastasia's doing the heavy lifting there, but Liza's got a big guest. She's going to tell you about it next. More of the greatest radio show ever. Just ask CJ, and our new friend from Wausau, John, I think his name.
Don't forget Keith from Middleton.
Test 1 2, test 1 2. I'm not too loud for you, am I, Liza?
Define too loud.
Oh, okay. Test 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2. I'm not blowing you out or anything.
Nope.
All right, we're coming back.
Oh.
You're listening to the radio show your mother warned you about, The Devil's Advocates.
And we're back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Make sure you download the Civic Media app. Go to your favorite app store. Get the Civic Media app. Take the Devil's Advocates with you everywhere you go. Click on a button to text or to call. Check your app stores. The Civic Media app.
It's a lot of places.
A lot of
places. I can't keep
Just
track
look
of all
for
of
it.
that.
Just go get it. It's super cool.
Dom, I've been joined by a fine guest here in the Solidarity Realty Studios, the 92.7 FM WMDX studio. She is Liza Hellenbrand. She's the host of Empowered Caregiver, and that's the show that comes on Wednesday nights right here on the Civic Media Network at 7 o'clock. And it has been a big week for the caregiver right up there at the state capitol. I know you've been up lobbying and advocating. So let's start. Why this week? What's going on this week?
This was a great week. So up at the Capitol, the AARP, along with some other organizations, did a press release to really push the CARE Act. The CARE Act is already in law in most of the states. I believe we're one of maybe 9 states that don't have it in place. And what it does is it requires hospitals to identify who the family caregiver is, notify the family caregiver when the patient, their loved one, is being discharged or transferred. And the key point of the whole bill is to make sure that the caregiver has the training that they need to be able to provide the care required at home.
And I did hear some of the press coverage actually right here on the Civic Media News earlier today. A lot of the lobbying took place yesterday, but your show tonight, you got a big guest. So who's your guest and why this guest?
Gotcha. Yes, this is what I'm super excited about. So tonight I am having the director and producer of the multi-award-winning documentary, Unseen, How We're Failing Caregiver Parents and Why It Matters. I might have.
You're doing that by memory. I'm quite impressed.
Well,
Dom
actually,
would never pull that off.
I'm less so. I am a little worried that I might have got that right. But it's yes, it's about family caregivers that are in the extreme family caregiving situation. And what I mean by that is they are family caregivers that are caring for people that back in the 50s, 60s probably would have been institutionalized. And somewhere along in the early 70s, we started to realize that the institutions really weren't much more than warehouses for people with disabilities, and that was wrong, and that's not the life that they deserved, and that they should be included in the community, which is yes, 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 yay, yay, and hurrah. However, that means the institutions had closed, and these people with disabilities are now being cared for by their parents 24/7, nonstop, most of the time with no help because of the high needs. People don't feel comfortable volunteering to help. There's not the respite providers out there to have the paid support. So these people are doing it nonstop, and it is literally killing them.
Liza Hellman, host of the Empowered Caregivers. It's what a situation. Of course, we're all either with our children or with our parents, or if life will throw us curveballs. But at some point, we care for others, and in those kinds of situations where it's almost a job, right? If the parents weren't caring for these kids and perhaps adult children, they'd be on the state. They'd be in the state. They'd be someone else. The state would be responsible for caring for them. Is there support? I mean, monetarily, if you take care of elder parents or young kids, can you get reimbursed from the state for the time and effort and money you spend in those efforts?
It's very iffy. There are certain, populations, groups of people with disabilities that have IRIS funding and different funding that will allow for parents to get paid, but overwhelmingly, no.
I'm sorry, the camera is following me around the studio, and it really needs to be on her.
Oh, it's probably for the best. Yeah.
No, trust me, Liza, it's not.
You're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. We've got the fine host of the Empowered Caregiver, Liza Hellenbrand, and the filmmaker, the documentarians, this award-winning documentary. The subject matter is caregiving. But I know you've watched this thing at least once recently. You've been paying close attention, and you seemingly found this quite engrossing.
Oh, they did an amazing job. It deserves to win many more awards. The lens through which they portrayed the families going through this, and the experts that they had on to speak on their behalf were exquisite.
And Liza, again, how big a problem is this caregiver problem? I know you continue to remind me and the other host here at Civic Media, this is on the Biden agenda. This is a front and center problem from the top down, but why? How big a problem is this numerically?
Caregiving affects about 1 in 5 Americans. And the saying goes that either you are a caregiver, you're going to need a caregiver, you've been a caregiver, or there's another one that I'm forgetting in the mix. But the point of it is that it impacts just about everyone at some point in their life.
And again, the Empowered Caregiver Show, which will come up here after the Maggie Dawn Show, right here on the Civic Media Network. If you don't have it on your local station, you can find it on the Civic Media app. Go to the WMDX channel. But again, the today's show is specifically about this documentary. But if people just want to go watch the documentary and hear why you're so excited about it, how can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone should watch it. I mean, it should be required watching. But what you can do is they have it on, I have it on my Facebook page, The Empowered Caregiver. I can't think of the site that it's on. If you Google it, Unseen How We're Failing Family Caregivers and Why It Matters, it should pop up. It'll bring you the link. There is a code, EMPOWERED, that they gave me. So if you do look at it, if you do go to watch it, it's $10 for the month of November for National Family Caregivers Month. Enter the code EMPOWERED. I will get that information on my show tonight so everybody knows exactly how and where to find it.
The Empowered Caregiver Show, the host, Liza Hellenbrand. Keep it locked right here on the Civic Media Network. That goes off at 7 o'clock. Want to thank our earlier fine guest here in the Solidarity Realty Studio. She is State Minority Leader Melissa Agard, our friend. And tomorrow, James Santel did a little fundraiser. Thank you to the Blue Sky Waukesha people for having me out at the residence. Someone's private residence seemed quite nice. And Jim, a gracious lead-in. He's going to join us on the air tomorrow. What time, Dom?
5 o'clock. James Santel, former U.S. Attorney, host of Morning Cannolis on Saturdays.
It's a singular. There's no S on cannoli.
There's always more cannolis.
You can never have too many cannolis.
No.